wanna live a life.
That guy did. Oh my gosh! Surprise, motherfucker! What? Oh my god, you're fucking crazy! What's up, you Smexy individuals? My name is Birdman778 and welcome back for another thematic build video. Today we're doing another one for Zane and we're calling this our Emperor Zane build. Now you might be wondering why it's called Emperor Zane. The entire inspiration, everything behind this build is off of Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars. So let's jump right in. So this entire build is kind of based around the idea of shock. Why shock specifically, you might be wondering. Well, Emperor Palpatine, being a Sith Lord, has the ability to use Force Lightning. Now, with Force Lightning, it tends to kind of chain between his enemies and kind of overcome them with the evil side of the Force, as some might say. I'm totally going to get yelled at by somebody who's Star Wars related. I'm ready for it. Anyway, a couple of the weapons that we are using in this build are the Redistributor, the Monarch, the Kill-A-Wisp, and the Plague Bearer. Now you might be wondering, why am I not be using a Brainstormer? Well, unfortunately, right now in Mayhem 2.0, personally, in my opinion, the Brainstormer is not a super effective weapon. And I wanted this to be a build that can kind of work in Mayhem 2.0 and work on Mayhem 10. So we kind of went with these different weapons. Now, why these ones specifically? Well, the Redistributor is already a super strong SMG, and also the fact that it chains between its enemies and it's a shock weapon kind of helps out with this idea of Emperor Palpatine doing his Force Lightning. I really like it. It's really good for the general mobbing between enemies, and it works for 99% of the build. We also use a Monarch mainly for your heavy enemies, something just to deal a bunch of damage, while also kind of keeping that idea of the Force Lightning. The Kill-A-Wisp is kind of essentially the what we put in for the Brainstormer. I'm super excited to use this weapon mainly because it's ×2 and it does those arc bolts off of the orbs that you shoot out that shock its enemies. Now, this is actually super effective for the Mayhem modifiers we're using, and I'll kind of explain that here later. And then we're also using a Plague Bearer just because the Plague Bearer is a boss gun. It's too good, man. Shield wise, we're using Transformer. It's shock. It's really helpful. I like it. We're using a See and Dead class mod to keep all of our kill skills up. The one I have has extra shotgun damage, SMG damage, and heavy damage. Helps out 3 of the different guns we're using in this build. I'm using a Cloning Hex with shock damage, more of like the arc bolts coming off of it, and then a Snowdrift Victory Rush. Now, essentially going down the skill tree, we are essentially trying to kind of take a lot of that speed that Zane kind of can get from his blue skill tree and from his red skill tree, and essentially put it into this build. Why? Well, because Emperor Palpatine himself is shown in the movies. He actually kind of has some speed, especially in Revenge of the Sith. So I decided to kind of take a little bit off of that and implement it with Zane, using different skills like Violent Speed and Violent Momentum, which are super helpful. Now, in regards to his Sentinel abilities, I'm using Static Field, just so it can kind of shoot that shock beam at enemies, draining it and replenishing Zane's shield in the process. Again, kind of going along the idea of the unlimited power, all that fun stuff, you know. Going into the red skill tree, typically just the synchronicity, the Donnybrook being super helpful. But we're also going to go into Supersonic Man, just so we can kind of get some more advantage from him moving around and having all that speed built up. And finally, in the green skill tree, we're going to be using our barrier for some extra damage, all that fun stuff. But we are going to be using the Dome Shield and the Deterrence Field. Why? We're just building into the shock aspect of this build. Essentially, anybody that touches us, they're going to get shocked in the process. Now, going into the Mayhem modifiers, the ones that we chose were Speed Demon. Again, we don't care about the speed. We want him to be super speedy. It's great. We love it. The Healy Avenger isn't really that big of a deal. Actually, it kind of helps out with the build in general. Whenever one of those little hearts pops up, you can shoot it and it can start chaining off to other enemies as well. Super helpful in the idea of the unlimited power, the shock, all that fun stuff. Pool Party, I don't really notice Pool Party a lot of times with these builds that I'm making, just because barrier tends to kind of negate a lot of that. And then the buddy system. Now, I mentioned before the Kill-A-Wisp being really helpful with this build. Why? Because I noticed using the Kill-A-Wisp actually will hit the buddy system drones. With a lot of other weapons I never notice that the buddy systems are touched or harmed in any way specifically, but with the Kill-A-Wisp, it chains onto them and it hurts them, and it helps kind of clear out a lot of the shields that those mobs are going to be having. So as you see me kind of going through this mobbing on Athenas, you'll see me kind of going through all the different guns that we have in this build and their specific uses. Again, the redistributor being our main mobbing weapon, the Kill-A-Wisp essentially going through, taking out a lot of the shields that our enemies have, or those buddy systems that tend to be a big issue. The Plague Bearer going through and being for more of those heavy enemies, and the Monarch almost specifically being for those in general. We do have some gameplay here as well from the Malawan takedown. I don't have any recordings at the moment from the Guardian takedown, just because at the time of this recording it hasn't been descaled. I really just don't feel like going through that process at the moment. Now guys, thank you so much for coming by this video. We're going to be having another thematic build coming out here soon. Really trying to decide if we're going to be doing another Zane one or might be trying a different character. But until then, I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Make sure you check out my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/birdman778. I stream Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern. Also check me out on Twitter at birdman778, Instagram at birdmangram, and on YouTube at youtube.com/birdman778. Make sure to hit that like button, hit the bell to get those notifications, all that good stuff. Leave a comment, tell me what is your favorite build currently with Zane if you are a Zane player, and until next time, I hope you have a wonderful one.